Good morning, everyone. It is another cool morning. It's not raining, so that's the good part. There's a big storm heading this way, and it's below us right now, but through the day it's going to slowly creep up. Hopefully by the time it gets here, which may be late afternoon or evening, it'll be calmed down. Won't be a problem. It's coming out of the warm air below us instead of coming down out of the cold. But it's going to cool things off because the front that's blowing this way is going to bring cold air. God designed the weather that we're dealing with. So it's okay to ask Him to take care of it if it's not what we want. We saw where Jesus did that a number of times. Come out on a storm, walking on the water, get in the boat, and the storm's gone. Another time He's sleeping and they're panicking because the boat looks like it's going to sink in this storm, and they wake Him up because He's sleeping. You go, what's the matter with you, people of little faith? He tells the storm to calm down, and it does. Now, this is God doing this, Jesus doing this, but we can do these things if it's important. If it's not important, then we gotta just hold on. Okay, in this day when we're having to talk to people and tell them about Jesus and about God and what's going on in the world, you're going to have one big question come to you. You're going to get this from new Christians who are just anxious to learn everything, and they can be like little kids sometimes. Why is this way? Why is this that way? How come the sky is blue? Because it's not red. But the one question that non-believers and young Christians are going to ask is, who is God? I get this from non-believers all the time. How can I worship a God that lets people suffer? How can I worship a God that allows war to kill millions, that causes floods and tornadoes and kills people? Well, the first answer to that is, well, at least we're on the right page, because the God that you don't want to worship is the God of this world, little g, Satan, because he causes most of that. Man causes some, Satan causes the rest. God doesn't cause it. God does not guarantee we're going to, doesn't promise us a rose garden, as the song goes. But He knows how to keep us from getting stuck. Thorns don't bother Him. He keeps us away from them. So if you can get that person to kind of acknowledge that, okay, maybe there are two rulers out there, that's a good start. My hands are getting cold. I'm going to go ahead and put my gloves on. Like I said, sitting is the hardest part when it's cold. I got to have fingers so I can work the phone. If I bring out my good gloves, my heavy-duty ones, I could sit out here and I put on another layer underneath. I can sit out in this. I have to change my tennis shoes for my boots, though. Okay, so we're going to study today, who is God? The bottom line to who that is you cannot describe God in so much as by what He does, because He's done amazing things, but how would you describe His personality? How would you say, if God were to walk on the street in the form of Jesus or as Himself somehow in heaven as He's walking along, and God used to walk in the Garden of Eden and talk to Adam and Eve. They obviously had a different body, because we can't see Him. Moses wanted to see Him, and all he could see was His back walking away or moving away. I don't know how God glides. But let's try to find out about His personality. We're going to look at a couple of places. The first place we're going to look to is back in Isaiah. Most of the New Testament is looking at God from the point of view of Jesus behaving the way God would. And that's another story, and we can look at that later. If you need a guide of who that is, but you got to convince somebody about God first before they're going to accept Jesus. So you got to go back to the beginning. We're also going to look in Exodus. But let's go to Isaiah and the chapter 40. These people back then were dealing with life back then. It was not an easy life. Isaiah is one of the prophets, a very long-winded prophet. Most of his chapters are a couple of pages. But the message that he would give the people would be who and what God is and what you need to do. So we're going to look to him to see the first description. We're going to see who comes into this park. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars, vehicles. That looks like one of our maintenance guys checking on things. That's all right. We may hear him clanging trash cans in front of me. This is a public area, so you can get out and enjoy a state park without having to spend the night like I do. But I'm not alone now. I've got like 4 or 5 people with me in the campsite. People come here and they park and then they go out and they can go for a hike. There's a hiking trail along the river real close. Okay, Isaiah chapter 40. Comfort, yes, comfort my people. The first word from Isaiah in chapter 40 is to comfort the people. God cares about his people, greatly cares about his people. Speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out to her, that her warfare is ended and her iniquity is pardoned. For she has received from the Lord's hand double for her sins. Israel is the chosen people. So God decided to punish her twice. That's glad that we're not in that all the time. And then this is my favorite verse out of this. A voice crying in the wilderness. That's what I try to copy. Prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill brought low. God can do that. The crooked places shall be made straight, and the rough places smooth. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. That's who God is. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken. And the voice said, cry out. He said, what shall I cry? All flesh is as grass, and all his loveliness is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades, because the breath of the Lord blows on it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God stands forever. Who can make grass green and grass turn brown in the winter? God. Because he set all this up. Satan didn't set any of this stuff up. He's been a usurper of it for all of his life. O Zion, who will bring good tidings? Get up into the high mountains of Jerusalem. You who bring good tidings, lift up your voice with strength. Lift it up and do not be afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Behold, the Lord God shall come with a strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs with his arm and carry them in his bosom, and gently lead those who are with young. He who measured the waters in the hollow of his hand. Can you go out and get a handful of water out of the ocean and then start counting how many handfuls you can get? I don't think so, but God did. Measured heaven with a span and calculated the dust of the earth in a measure. Only God can do that. He weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in a balance. Who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselor has taught him? With whom did he take counsel, and who instructed him and taught him in the path of justice? Again, God, who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding. Behold, the nations are as a drop in a bucket, and are counted in a small dust on the scales, counted as a small dust on the scales. Nations don't even bother him. Dust on a scale. If you put dust on a scale, does it show up? Probably not. Look, he lifts up the isles as a very little thing, and Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor its beasts sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations before him are nothing, and they are counted by him as less than nothing and worthless. To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness will you compare to him? The workmanship molds an image. The goldsmith overspreads it with gold, and the silversmith casts silver chains. Whoever is too impoverished for such a contribution chooses a tree that will not rot. He seeks for himself a skillful workman to prepare a carved image that will not totter. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundation of the earth that he who sits above the circle of the earth and all of its inhabitants are like grasshoppers? Remember who God is when you're talking to him. I'm going to jump on down. You can keep reading on this stuff if you want, but it's basically more of the same. He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increases their strength. If you need strength, ask for it. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not be faint. Familiar verse, and that's what God is like when you try to explain to people. Let me go ahead. Okay, I'm back. When you get a couple of carloads of people hop out, it gets noisy, so I decided I'd better go ahead and pause. Okay. We know about God, but there's one other thing that you've got to know about God. In this world that looks to things that are material, but that's not a new thing. It's been around forever, because we're going to go back to Exodus. And this is the time when Moses is going up and down talking to God. So we're going to look at Exodus 20. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. In a little while, they're going to be complaining. They're going to want to be going back because they don't like the food. And that's why they want to go back into bondage. People are fickle. God has to deal with them. We don't. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or in the earth beneath, that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I am the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Moses carrying these words from God. visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands who love me and keep my commandments. You want to please God? Love him and keep his commandments. Not an easy thing to do for a sin nature, but a goal. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, nor will the Lord not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Okay, if we were to read on, you will eventually get to the 10 Commandments. So if you want to see those, you can go ahead and read them there. So, God is powerful enough that he counts the stars on his hands. He has them all named. He can count the sand on the sea. Nothing on this earth is intimidating to him. When he laid up our universe, he knew everything that was going to happen in that universe. He planned everything. That's who God is. And in all that, in spite of all that, he loved us before we were even born. We are predestined in the sense that we know the ones that are, or he knows the ones that are going to go to heaven. But we're not predestined in the fact that he won't control us every step of the way. He gives us a path, but we can wander off of it. We can refuse the path entirely. People do. But he's put everything there for our benefit, for our good. Only someone who believes a big and powerful lie would ever choose anyone besides God. Well, the world's best liar is the ruler of this planet. Maybe a better word would be the governor, because he has no real power. He can do some tricks, but he can't do anything to anyone on this planet unless God has given him permission. And God doesn't give Satan carte blanche on this earth anywhere. You can harm the people that don't like me a little bit, but not kill them. In some cases, he might let them kill them. I don't know. But if we're Christians, we're pretty well protected. That doesn't mean we're free of any problems. Sometimes being a Christian has more problems than not being one. If you don't like God and don't want to have anything to do with him, Satan may leave you alone. He may even help you to flourish on this planet. But everyone on this earth faces a final earthly death. All but a handful have escaped that. And we may get to have 2 of them come back who escaped it and then do it again, but not escape it. Get to be killed. We're going to have our 2 witnesses killed, but they will be resurrected and taken back up to heaven. So, there may still be a couple remaining. Jesus is not even the exception to that. His physical body died, but his spiritual body didn't. His spiritual body ruled every place. He even went to hell and ruled that. You want to think about where God is? He's omnipresent. That means God is in hell too. He maybe doesn't like it down there. He doesn't like to see what he sees, but he knows why they're there. We're going to be seeing in a few years, I don't know how many, but we're going to be seeing the final blows of Satan. He was brought here for a purpose. God uses bad people to do things that are going to turn out to be good. He does it all the time. That's how big God is, that he knows when even a bad person can be used for good. But God cannot issue and punish people. That's why he's got Satan around. God is love. Love can control a little bit by saying, If you walk on this path, you have nothing to fear. But he also loves so much that he won't force people to walk on the path. He wants you to make that decision. But he tells you the consequences if you don't. A lot of what we go through, a lot of what we suffer, are things that we've done in our life to deserve it to a degree. Our prisons are full of people who regret what they did. Nobody does anything expecting to get caught. But on this earth, there are rules. God can help us a little bit. But there are consequences to our behavior on earth. Neglecting God has its consequences. Neglecting the 10 Commandments, if you go back and read Exodus 20, you see them, just in case you don't remember. But pretty much everyone's seen them, heard them. They used to be published everywhere. They used to be in courthouses. But I guess to lawyers, that's considered a hostile work environment. Sorry. Lawyers, like anything, can be used for good or for bad. Unfortunately, we don't see the good all the time. We only see the bad. We see where a bad guy gets off through a technicality. Yeah. Nobody ever escapes God's judgment. Okay. I live out in nature because I love seeing God's creation. Most of the time, it's perfect. Even if it's raining, I enjoy it, as long as I'm not wet. If I'm sitting in the rain, that might be a different thing. But if I'm sitting under a tarp or under a shelter, like the one behind me, it can rain and I'm fine. Cold, I have a little problem with. Really, really, really hot, I have a little bit of a problem with, but not as much as cold. The little heater in my body doesn't work well, so I freeze easier than most. I have a low thyroid, so cold is uncomfortable. But I can dress for it. I have heaters in my tent, plural heaters. I can make coffee or tea instantly in my tent, so I'm fine. Don't worry about me. When you pray for me, pray that I am continuing to do what God wants me to do. That's the key. Sometimes Satan gets in and gums up the works, and I have difficulty trying to get a video uploaded. That's the real worst of my problems. Occasionally he'll mess with some of my stuff, like messing with my car, because that's my transportation. Don't have wings yet. Can't fly from place to place. During the millennium, we may be able to do that. All right. Tell the world about God. There's so many misunderstandings about who God is. They're all from Satan. Satan wants to make everybody hate God. But that's the lie. Everything he tells people about God is a lie. And then he claims the attributes of God. He's a thief, too. He's also a coward, because he's holding off starting all this stuff. They could start all this stuff up any time. They're ready. The longer it takes, the more of a coward Satan is. Yeah, that's a challenge, Satan. I'm challenging you to get going, get this world on the final track. It's what God planned from the beginning. And right now, you're the key. So get off your behind and do something. I'm not wishing pain and suffering on people, but I'm looking forward to the end of Revelation, where everybody that accepted Christ during and before the tribulation will all be gathered together in the New Jerusalem. That's where the wedding feast will be. And guess what, Satan? You're not invited. In fact, that will be the end of you. All right. It's good news, people. Tell people about it. You don't hit people over the head with good news. You share it with a smile. You tell people. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.